Mr. Besser, just to let you know, sometimes it feels awkward when you're calling in remotely, but just jump in. If you have, if you have a comment or a question, just say, that you have a comment. It feels awkward, but just, do it confidently. We're all good.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so I will call this meeting to order at 7:06. If you can join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so I will call this meeting to order at 7:06. If you can join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our approval of minutes. This is from the meeting on April 25th as presented. April 25th, 2023 as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. King?
I'll second.
Ms. Anderson, seconds. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. The next is approval of minutes for the meeting, the special meeting on May 2nd, 2023 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. King
I'll second.
and Ms. Anderson seconds. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We'll move on to our general functions. We're going to start with staff, student, and community recognitions. Mr. Caruth.
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. We have a couple of special announcements this evening. First, we spent the last hour across the hall honoring staff who are leaving us this year due to retirement. And they're they're really, really retiring at the end of this school year, meaning they are moving on to something else. While a number of them have already been approved by the board and are in that various stage, all of them that were honored tonight, this will be their last year of deployment and service to the Vail School District, ranging in time from just a handful of years to over 30. So we just want to acknowledge them. Those that were here tonight were Chris Conti, Karen Eichelman, Michelle Fredericks, Molly Gerby, Patty Hall, Brenda Holman, Lisa Irwin, Trish Kaproff, Mary Beth Mayo, Dennis Miola, Louise Miles, Sandra Mooney, Carrie Nelson Payne, Carol Saldana, Mary Spear, and along with Edie Wagner. So just wanted to acknowledge you as part of the board record this evening. As I mentioned across the way earlier this evening, the culture in our school district is a reflection of the people that work here, and it is a very healthy culture that is evidenced by a number of factors. But I think one of the most telling is that our young people who you have touched their lives over the time period with which you have served in your respective roles are choosing to come back here and make their lives work, something that looks and is reflective of the work that you poured into them. And if that isn't a definition of legacy, I'm not sure what is. So thank you all for your service to the Vail School District.
Before we move on, can we just get Ms. Peterson asked if we can get a quick picture?
Yep.
We're gonna stand up.
Here, let's squeeze in right here. I know.
We're missing Atlas, just in the village.
As they exit, another group from community services programs will be here and to honor their ECE student workers program. So as soon as I see Ms. Kubiak, I will pass it over to her. Actually, while I'm going to do this while they are filing in, I'm going to go ahead and go to staff recognitions, beginning with Mr. Norris. We'll start with Mr. Norris and then Mr. Parks. And as soon as the community services folks all get settled, we'll pause that for a moment and get there. Mrs. Kubiak, once you get them all in, we'll go from there. So you can just hold them, and I'm going to have Mr. Norris go first, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Yep. Mr. Norris.
Good evening, President Pratt, Superintendent Cruz, members of the board. I want to start by recognizing and thanking one of our special education paraprofessionals, Rosalie Dexter, for everything she does to make our school a special place for students. In addition to all the great work she does with students, she recently went to RVMS on a Saturday morning with her dad and her uncle to power wash our Roadrunner Cafe and to scrape gum from the cement. She couldn't attend our Make a Difference Day in the fall, so she took the time to make a difference in her own way. She also recently contributed to our PBIS program by providing bracelets for students to buy with their Nestbooks at our Nestbooks store. I want to take a moment to thank Mary Catherine Scruggs for hosting the annual Spring into Poetry Coffee House Night at RVMS on April 21st. Mrs. Scruggs facilitates our Authors Club after school on Fridays, and this event provided club members the opportunity to read their own poetry, or they could have their work read by someone else. The night was perfect with great weather, tasty snacks, and coffee. It was actually more impressive to watch our students. It was an absolute pleasure to listen to their work because I was able to see how incredibly talented they are as individuals. I want to recognize Brianna Fonseca, Amy Muzinski, Jennifer Porter, and Margot Farrow for working together to orchestrate a smooth and seamless AASA testing season for us. They were well organized and worked with our entire staff to create a calm and orderly environment where students could concentrate and succeed on the test. I'd like to take a moment to recognize a few of our PTO parents. When I first started as principal at Rincon Vista in July of 2020, there was one remaining member of the PT. It was a PTA at the time, and her name was Isabel Drew. She's our current registrar. She spent endless hours trying to keep the PTA out of trouble with the IRS. Literally, she was on the phone with the IRS for hours on end during my first year, just trying to keep them out of trouble. Thanks to her diligence, she figured out how to resolve the issues and help set the path for us to change over to a PTA. In July of 2021, four parents, Hillary Mahoney, Marelli Lebano, Sarah Van Austin, and Rebecca Carrier started and built our PTO from scratch, from the ground up. Lauren Zajac joined as the VP, Vice President in October of 2021, and Talia last joined as the treasurer in July of 2022. As we transition to a new PTA board next year, I want to thank these parents for the work they did to build the PTA into what it is today. They are leaving behind a healthy budget that supports Rincon Vista in a variety of ways throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Mrs. Kubiak.
President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, governing board members, I have a special recognition tonight. I am recognizing Mrs. Parks. Is someone in that crowd over there? And our high school student workers and the CTE Early Childhood Program at Cienega High School. Mrs. Parks has been instrumental in helping to build the relationships between her program and community programs. Over the years, we've had a few student workers within community programs, but this year we have had an influx of students inquiring about working for us. Mrs. Parks is not only a teacher to these students, but she offers to help them with the district application process and their resumes. So when they come to us for their interview, they are very well prepared. Also, when the students show up to work, there's evidence in their daily interactions that what Mrs. Parks is teaching the students is making a difference. They come to us with an understanding of developmentally appropriate practices. They know how to interact with the children that they're working with and how to speak to them. They even get down onto their level with the children when they are interacting with them. These students also have a strong work ethic. They're always willing to help out wherever and whenever. They're flexible and will work with all of our age groups. They have positive attitudes. They will stay longer if we need them to. And they're just a joy to be around. They've also learned they also are eager to learn more from our staff about best practices with working with children. In fact, they have the skills that we're looking for when we're hiring our staff. It is an absolute pleasure to have them working in our programs. I'm so appreciative of this opportunity to have these Vail students working in community programs, and I cannot say enough about Mrs. Parks and the CTE program. Mrs. Parks, would you like to come up and introduce the students and say a few words if you'd like?
Thanks, Linda. So I want to introduce the most important people here. And so I'm going to have the students come stand in front so that everybody knows exactly who they are. And then I want to thank, before I announce their names, just stand in front. Before I announce their names, I want to thank Linda and the community program staff for taking a chance on young people, because sometimes that's pretty terrifying, right? But it's so worth it. I also want to thank this community and the board for taking the time out of this meeting to recognize them, because when we find young people with servant hearts such as these, we need to make sure to remember to keep filling their buckets and keeping that passion going, because these are our future, hopefully some of our future teachers. So thanks, guys. I'm going to announce their names, and then if parents want to take pictures, and then some of us will probably sneak out of here. We have Abby White, Cami Parker, Angel Mercado, Rianne Dorman, Maddie Fisher, Olivia Mahalka, Alicia Johnson, Lily Maynard, and Rachel George here tonight.
Wait for
Great job, you guys.
Thank you, Mrs. Kubiak and Mrs. Parks, and to the student workers. Thank you. You were outside as I was recognizing our retirees who are on the other end of the work spectrum as you, but also acknowledging that much of the work that has been invested in you is drawing you and your peers back to us. So I hope to see you on future board packets as future employees sometime soon. Next up is Mr. Parks, followed by Mrs. Pinkerton.
Well, thank you guys. Like usual, my wife's going to make me look bad because she's so much more eloquent than I am. President Pratt, Mr. Cruth, members of the board, I'd first like to recognize our staff for staff appreciation. So at Andrada, we kind of recognize everybody during this week instead of just teacher appreciation. We do staff appreciation. So I've been to a few schools and a few districts in my career, and I can tell you that at Andrada right now, I feel so fortunate to be able to work with such amazing professionals that care so much about kids. And just every day I go in there with a smile. You know, there's some days that smiles aren't as big as the others, but every day they make me feel good to be able to be a part of that community. I'd also, just for the appreciation week, I'd love to thank our front office staff, our PTO, and Becky Johnson. Becky Johnson, she joked today that this is her Super Bowl because she is so good at staff appreciation. So we have so much food and fun, and it's a derby theme. I'm not even going to talk about what Mr. Carrier and I have to wear on Friday to deliver coffee, but I'm sure there'll be pictures. I'd also like to recognize, on a different note, our student achievement teacher, Mr. Livingston. As you know, it's been testing time for the past month or two, and he has balanced and coordinated and implemented. I just want to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that he has to do, especially at Cienega, was the ACT, the Aspire, the pre-ACT, AP test, CTE state and national assessments, and our AccuPlacer assessment. So he has done that in the last roughly month of testing all those kids. He's done it in a way that's been little impact to teachers and to education and instruction. So that's the nice part too, is like we've done it very purposeful, and he's done a great job organizing that. Also, on a side note, with the CTE state assessments, I just came back from a healthcare banquet healthcare pathway banquet, and our students are doing really well on this assessments. Jackie Wolf, Leslie Fisher, and Justin Villard in all the healthcare, so behavioral health, medical assisting, and vet tech, and then also engineering. 100% of our students passed that. It's just phenomenal, especially if you know much about our medical assisting. We had teacher turnover like 3 times this year, and Jackie Wolf and Leslie Fisher really stepped up, and they did an amazing job to get those kids to passing, along with Nurse Bakos. She's a parent that helped us out with the clinical part of it, so that was great for her to help. Our spring sports finished up, so I'd like to thank our coaches for a successful season. Boys tennis with Michael Hall, girls tennis Brandon Alessini, and golf is Justin Villard. Also, we had a great showing. I know that Jen was there for our SEP, so thanks Sally Moore for being a part of that and just coordinate the whole thing. And then again, Jackie and Leslie, they're kind of a combo all the time. They coordinated the prom, and we had it at Reed Park Zoo, and it was phenomenal, and it was just really cool to have that. I'd also like to recognize our counselors, Aaron Townsend, Ryan Lee, Randy Verdon, Gloria Bernal, as well as our counseling secretary, Tracy Brockla, for their work in freshman registration and class schedules for next year. We had now we're almost up to 270 incoming freshmen, which is crazy. It's a huge number, and they got them all in. They got our other kids, so we're about 750 now in terms of what we have right now. You know, we don't know who's going to come through the door in the fall, but they'd also got it so that we're going to be able to get our schedules for almost all those kids before we leave for the summer, which is a huge undertaking. Along with that, I'd like to recognize our entire special education department as they're working with the counselors on this as well. And I'd like to recognize our whole team, including all the paraprofessionals and Donna Anderson. We're down about 5-6 paraprofessionals, so everybody has to step up, and you wouldn't know that there's no service missed because of it, because they're just their ability to step up. Finally, I'd like to thank our amazing PTO and parents of Andrada for the support they've given us all this year, whether through fun events, fundraising, donations, food, or just a kind word. Our Andrada community really takes care of our staff and students. I just can't thank them enough for being a part and helping us get over that hump and words of affirmation. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Mrs. Pinkerton, followed by Mrs. Robold.
President Pratt, Mr. Caruth, members of the board, I'd like to start off by recognizing the Vail Blended Learning staff for putting together a well-executed A+ celebration last week. Although I wasn't able to be there in person, I've heard nothing but positive feedback about the event. Kristen Murray's leadership and attention to detail made for a wonderful celebration of the A+ award at VDL. A huge thank you to Kathy King, Cindy Barger, Rhonda Hamaker, and the Vail virtual staff for planning and putting together their first in-person carnival bash. So you can imagine at a virtual school, getting all the families to come to celebrate. We had over 100 people at school on Friday in attendance, and did all kinds of things, from eating donuts off of strings to hula hooping and all kinds of fun events. And it was really good to have all the kids, the virtual kids, come in person and get to see their teachers and be around their teachers. Thank you to Elaine Murphy for all of her work as the Vail Virtual SAT and Vic STC. She is moving on next year, and we could not have pulled off what we did this year, especially the last couple of years with her as our support. She is moving to be a more supportive person across the district and taking on multiple schools. And so she'll stay as our STC, but we won't have her as the SAT next year. Her implementation of Schoology and the transition to that this year, with our virtual students being, our virtual teachers being in person in a building, has been instrumental. I'd also like to recognize Mindy DiCamillo, the Savano School Chef. This is a unique position. I don't believe there's any other chefs across the district that we employ. She has this outstanding planning that she does in terms of planning lunches for a number of students, and always just has really healthy, delicious choices for students. Along with that, we implemented at Savano PBIS partway through the year, and really have put a focus on different parts of the PBIS program. And one of those is the Acts of Kindness program. And she has recognized over 40 students this year from the lunchroom, from the kitchen. She's always thinking of others and goes above and beyond to recognize those people around her who are exemplifying positive culture. And lastly, I'd like to recognize the Savano Middle School team, Donald Reese, Amanda Galvan, and Tanya Hoos, for planning a wonderful 3-day backpacking adventure, including overnight, for our 8th graders that occurred in the Dragoon Mountains. We do this through the Ironwood Tree Backpacking Program. And it's one of those capstone experiences at Savano that our 8th graders get to experience before they move on to high school. So we appreciate their support in that program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pinkerton. Mrs. Robold.
Good evening, President Pratt, Mr. Caruth, and members of the board. I'd like to start by recognizing Ocotillo Ridge Assistant to the Principal, Sam Duncan, for a highly successful year in her first year in her new role. Her efforts to build strong relationships with parents, students, and staff, to jump in and help wherever she's needed, and to learn administrative responsibilities from outside the classroom have been really invaluable. She shows strong initiative and problem-solving skills, and she leads with authenticity. She has a very bright future as a leader, and it's been fun to watch her grow. And I know she's listening, so hi, Sam. Also, I'd like to recognize the Ocotillo Ridge Special Education Department, specifically our special education parapros, Teresa Williamson, Ashley Barnes, Haley Larson, Renee Locke, Sue Keel, Cecilia Montano, Ella Solano, Maria Delaney Fanning, Kathy Seed, Maureen Purcell, Rick Prober, Whitney Calloway, Jim Adams, and Anthony Marietta for their endless care for our students. They are an incredibly smart group of people who support student programs, brainstorm solutions to hard problems, work really well together, and are a positive culture builder on campus. We appreciate them so much. And then, as all the other principals or directors have shared, it's testing season. And unfortunately at ORE, our SAT is on maternity leave. It's like a principal's nightmare. But fortunately at ORE, we have really great people who step in and fill in. So I'd like to honor Ashley Campos and Lizette Fay for their additional efforts to support the student achievement teacher role for the 4th quarter during testing season. Mrs. Campos's organization and meticulous attention to detail with ASA and benchmark testing, and Mrs. Zitfay's efforts to ensure class placements, COGAT testing, and other details were completed with ease while still filling their normal roles on campus as teachers. It's just so appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Robold. One other district-wide recognition I'd like to make. The Vail School District Hackathon took place on May 4th at Andrada Polytechnic High School. 114 students from 4 different schools, Esmond Station, Rincon Vista, Vail Academy and High School, and Corona Foothills Middle School. The challenge was centered around creative problem solving, and students presented their projects to a panel of STEM judges hailing from local organizations, as well as Andrada Polytechnic High School engineering students. Just wanted to extend an appreciation for all who made that event successful. I believe this was our 4th or 5th annual hackathon. So I just want to recognize all of those people. I have a full list of people here who I will make sure are a part of the minutes, but because there are so many and the time is getting late, I will make sure that they're included in the minutes. But congratulations to the students who participated, and thank you to everyone who made our hackathon successful. That's all we have for staff, student, and community recognitions this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. I'm actually going to we're going to pause the rest of this section right now. We're going to insert, Ms. Peterson, if you're okay with this, new business item A, the Sonita Valley Elementary School principal position. It's an action item. I know the people involved have been traveling since 3 a.m. this morning, so we thought it would be good to move this up in the agenda, and then we'll continue right back where we paused. So we're gonna go ahead and do new business item A. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. As you all are well aware, Mrs. Griffin's decision to move closer to her family in Texas has left a vacancy at Sonita Valley Elementary School. And as I have said to many others, and I think it's a widely held understanding, Mrs. Griffin's leadership is going to be sorely missed, and very sad to see her go. However, we must face the reality that the school needs a high quality principal, and we have really high quality people who stepped up and were part of the interview process. We followed the standard interviewing process to make that happen. And I'm very excited to announce to you this evening that the panel, the committee, which is comprised of site council parents, staff members from the school, a governing board member, in this case, President Pratt and myself, were involved with making the selection, unanimously have selected and are making the recommendation to this governing board that Mr. Chris Woodosh be appointed the next principal at Sonita Valley Elementary School. Chris is in his 9th year in Vail. Many of those years were in elementary education and special education. He was also taught for 4 years in the Yuma School District in elementary special education as well. Every stop that Mr. Woodosh has been in the Vail School District, he has excelled, and more importantly, those around him have thrived. And that work continued when he was selected as the assistant principal at Cienega High School, in the position in which he has served for the past 3 years. So it's also a wonderful story. His wife, Kelsey, is one of the special education teachers Mrs. Robold was just referring to a moment ago. And while they're both a little older now, when they arrived at new teacher induction 9 years ago and sat down at the same table, they introduced themselves. And now I'm going to have, after we're done with this, I'm going to have Mr. Woodosh introduce their family. So with that, I make the recommendation that the Vail School District Governing Board approve the placement of Mr. Christopher Woodosh as principal at Sonita Valley Elementary School effective July 1, 2023, as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Mrs. Anderson and Mr. King seconds. Are there comments or questions? Mr. Bester, do you have any comments or questions?
Just congratulations.
Thank you. I just want to share, I'm just so excited. Sonita Valley is a really incredible place. It's a very special school. We're excited to have you join that family and to be able to work there and lead that school. So thank you and congratulations. Go ahead.
Just one other thing I failed to mention in that background report, both Mr. Woodosh and his family live in the Sonita Valley neighborhood, and their daughter will be attending kindergarten there next year. Hopefully with her dad.
Yes.
Pending this vote.
Yes, very exciting. Well, we won't delay it any longer then. We'll call for the vote if there's no other comments or questions. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Congratulations.
Chris, do you want to take a second? You want to take a second and just introduce those that are with you tonight? Thank you for being here.
Yes. Yes, thank you for being here. And you, it is a riveting meeting, but you guys don't have to stay. So I know that you're tired, so we can pause for a second and let you guys.
Can you come forward, Chris, and can we get a quick picture with you though, and maybe you and your family, and we'll move on.
Congratulations. All right. You can go home and put those babies to bed. All been there before. All right, so we're going to go back to where we paused. We're back into general functions. We're going to go to item B. This is called to the public. At this time, the board may consider and discuss comments and concerns from the public. Those wishing to address the governing board on items not on tonight's agenda may do so at this time. Speakers are requested to hold their comments to 3 minutes. In accordance with Arizona open meeting law, board members may not respond, comment, or ask questions of speakers regarding the issues not on the agenda. I do have 3 requests to speak on items not on tonight's agenda. And just a reminder, please just adhere to that 3-minute mark if you don't mind. And you can see the timer up here. So first we have Daniel Lewis, and then after Mr. Lewis, we have Anastasia. So Mr. Lewis, thank you.
Hello again. I'm here once again to talk about Minga after several different revelations that I've had. And months ago, you guys shared a story on KVOA about Minga. In that story, you only highlighted one aspect of its capabilities, completely neglecting the other aspect the app is designed for, which might make parents question the efficacy and safety of this app you are attempting to make mandatory. No one has yet to prove to me what the app says it's doing is actually what it's doing. It's all been anecdotal evidence. Nobody here, I'm not even that smart, but I have history on my side with the other countless news stories about how apps on your phones and computers that said they were doing one thing and respecting privacy, but evidence supports that there was deception and ill intent behind the scenes, data breaches, hacks, privacy violations, you name it. 92% of apps on the iPhone platform have been hacked at least once. It's 100% on the Android platform. So how does a 2-year-old third-party app out of Canada immune from the same problems? I also think that you're in violation of the Parents' Bill of Rights when you uploaded our kids' photos to Minga with their names attached. Section 7 of 1-602 states the right to consent in writing before a biometric scan of the minor child is made pursuant to section 15-109. By uploading our kids' photos, you allow the facial characteristics of our kids to be exploited. So you're uploading it to a third-party app from Canada. It does open up the possibility to analyze facial characteristics and associate anyways. And again, you can't prove that's not what's happening in the background. What is happening in the background is Minga works and shares information with other developers working solely on the advancement of artificial intelligence. Personally, that's shady for a business that's supposedly just producing hall passes and digital IDs. Why does AI need to be involved in a class curriculum site? Is there an ulterior motive driving it? Are our kids' euphemisms and mannerisms being collected to understand how to talk to a teenager? Do any of you know about the rise of AI voice cloning and how it's being used to make fake kidnapping calls? You guys are willfully allowing our kids to be exposed and exploited to this technology. At the end of the day, do any of you want digital IDs or social credit scores forced into your personal life? If not, why would you help desensitize and indoctrinate our kids into that lifestyle via Minga? PBIS tracking, positive behavioral intervention and support. It is irresponsible and dangerous for an adult to place their own self-interest and possible future political advancements over the safety of those they are elected to serve. Oh, by the way, do any of you know if Minga and Change Gamers Inc., the business that owns Minga, follows US law or do they follow Canadian law? If you don't know, then why rely on something that's potentially not bound to the laws of the United States? Because I bet they are probably immune to FISA requests if that's the case. I will not stop fighting against this malfeasance you choose to subjugate our children into without informed consent. And I'm also requesting you speak with Kim Middleton to remove both of my children's information from Minga within 48 hours. I do not consent.
Thank you. So we cannot comment as board members and discuss, you're right. But we do have an opportunity to clarify. Mr. Cruz, do you want to?
Yeah, I just want to clarify again that the Minga app is not a requirement, and it is only used on student devices. If a student wants to use it on their personal device, that is totally up to them. But
Why open them up to it to allow them to do it?
So I
just
think, yeah.
making a clarification.
Well, but
And-
And also want to
clarification, John.
I also want to make the clarification that our tech team has thoroughly vetted the safety and credibility of the company.
Thank you. And I'm happy to meet with anybody. Mr. Lewis, I'm happy to meet with you after either after the meeting or we can find a time that would work.
John, has the tech team
So this isn't, I'm sorry, it's not the forum to be able to do this. So I'm happy to talk to you about it, but let's do it after. We'll do it after the meeting. Thank you. Miss Anastasia, thank you.
All right. This thing's like so far down. Before we begin, I just want to congratulate all of our graduating seniors for this year. Job well done. And for our retiring teachers, congratulations on a job well served in your retirement. So I'm coming today, actually, I kind of had changed my prospectus. I wanted to talk to something that was actually on the agenda for tonight. Most specifically, the list of clubs that are being presented here tonight. There are 3 that concern me greatly, and I would highly like to ask that you vote no on these pending further investigation is all I'm asking you to do. Bolts for Justice, Iron Cat, and Thunder Awareness Club. Social justice has been a sore point for many over the last few years. Social justice to some may mean one thing, social justice to others could totally mean something else. The one that's most worrisome for me is Bolts for Justice. In addition, the dovetail on that is with Iron Cat. Iron Cat seems to be an exercise club for weightlifting and things like that, which I would never have a problem with. But when you insert social justice into weightlifting, unless there was a typo, I need some more clarification on that. And that needs further investigation because that is in here. You need to read it. Bolts for Justice is also a problem for me. It really doesn't have a place on school grounds. And the fundraising is another questionable item I'm asking you guys to do further investigation on, because this could open up another slew of legal issues down the road should there be a problem with it. Talking about fun runs, okay, a lot of people do fun runs, selling shirts and stuff like that. But where is the money going to go exactly? Who's going to be the arbiter of where these funds go? Who is going to know what organization this will fund? And who will monitor the funds that are collected for this club? Who is going to be the arbiter on this? There is no place here. You guys all know that this whole social justice issue with drag queens, we have pronouns still in school, we have furries in school, we have litter boxes in one of our schools. That's really just completely disgraceful and it needs to go. This is, they could be funding BLM. They could be funding communities for children. They're serving as improper models for any kind of justice warrior actions. And again, this could also create a negative with a bully pulpit that could create socially charged ideologies or racially charged ideologies with significant negative results in the current academic and overall social environment, since it's already so heavily negative. I would encourage you to have a no vote until further investigation can be completed on these clubs and until these questions are answered.
Thank you, Anastasia. And I can follow up to answer these questions over email. I believe, Ms. Peterson, do you have her email? Okay, so I can follow up and answer your questions over email. And our last request is Mr. Tate.
Yes, President Pratt, Superintendent Cruth, board members. Last week and this week has been National Staff Appreciation Week, depending on which organization you kind of look at. But over the last 2 weeks, I just wanted to recognize the PTAs, the PTOs, the PTSAs, the LMNOPs, all the different parent, staff and student organizations in the district who have really stepped up to recognize staff members across the district. Every facet of the school district has been recognized and continues to be throughout this week. And I know a couple of the principals mentioned their organizations as well, but these are people that without pay and step up sometimes with their own money as well as with a lot of their own work just to set up thank yous, whether breakfast or lunch or activities for staff within the district. So I just want to take a moment and recognize them and to thank them for all they do to make this a very special district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Okay, our next item is acknowledgement of public request to speak. These are items on tonight's agenda. I do not have any requests at this time. So we will move on to our next section is correspondence and reports. Our first item is superintendent's report. Mr. Cruth.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. Just a couple of quick reports. as Mr. Tate so eloquently put it, is Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week this week and last week. And I just want to also acknowledge the number of community organizations and PTOs and other groups who have come alongside and supported our staff this week and last week. It is a true example of what education as a community effort looks like and is much appreciated. It is this Sunday kicked off, believe it or not, our graduation season. The baccalaureate blessing of the graduate service occurred at the Vail Theater of the Arts on Sunday evening, hosted by our students from the FCS Club. And it is the first of many graduation ceremonies to come. And so I just wanted to call attention to that, and which leads to the other item that I want to call attention to, that we will not be having a board meeting on May 23rd of this month, because it is right smack dab in the middle of our graduation week. And many of us will be attending the Vail Academy and High School graduation event that evening. That's all I have for superintendent this evening.
Thank you. Our next item is board reports. Do any board members wish to give a report? And I'm gonna just ask Mr. Buster first, if he has a report.
President Pratt, not at this time, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buster. Other board reports?
Yeah, I'll send a report. With this being my first year on the board, I had the opportunity to review and score the middle school educational enrichment plans. So that was new for me and something that I had the opportunity to do in the last 2 weeks. I also got to attend Bell Blended's A+ ceremony with Kristen Murray, and just how grateful I am for that program, the district, and the needs that is met with those students. Just a couple other things. I attended last night Cienega's choir concert and percussion concert, and got to see these kids perform and just do an amazing job. And I know Micah and Empire had theirs last night also. Two other things I got to finish, I guess I talked about it the last 2 weeks ago, but got to see the FFA students at Cienega finish with a large stock in the last 2 weeks. And just what a great program that is with Miss McNall and Miss Larios and the work they are doing with the ag students there. And then just to all the AP exams and that the students are doing last week, this week, and probably this coming week. And best wishes to those students.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any other board reports? Mr. King?
Yes. I also attended the A+ celebration over at the Vic, and that was really good to see, especially being their first year being eligible and then able to pull that off. That was great. Also, I wanted to remind everybody, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So if you have a chance, take a minute, check on your neighbor, your friends, your family, and if anybody needs help, please reach out. It is also Military Appreciation Month, so I'd also like to thank all of our veterans and military family members who choose Vail for their home and their school district. And lastly, it's the month of the military child. I spent quite a few years as a military brat traveling around the world. So 10 different schools just in my primary education. So three high schools in the United States and 1 high school overseas. So it does make a difference to have quality education. So just for the military kids that are out there, just know you're not alone. It does get better. And lastly, I did attend the baccalaureate on Sunday evening with Superintendent Caruth and former Superintendent Cal Baker. It was really inspiring to see the community come together and send their graduates off into the world with such uplifting messages. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. I want to give a quick board report as well. On Saturday, I attended a swim party. Actually, I did not swim, but at the Tate's house. And the Tates do this every year. They host a swim party for our teachers from the Philippines. And I just think it's a great way to build community and just to have a time for these families to get together and to be able to celebrate with other people in the district. So I'm grateful for community members who help build community. Thank you. I also attended VBL's A+ assembly, or their award. My favorite part, they did a skit that spoofed the staff at VBL. It was literally the funniest thing. It was so cute, so well done. I just loved it. I thought that they did such a great job, and it was a testament to me how well the children know their teachers and know the leaders there, and then how much they love each other. Because you can't do that with somebody that you don't love and that love them. I also helped score EEPs. I did a group of the elementary. I love seeing all the ways that teachers are excited to bring what they're passionate about into the schools as an option for kids to choose to participate or not. There's such creative programs, and there's something for everybody. And then also, as a little side note, another benefit is to be able to work with just a really great group and to get to know teachers and principals better. And so every year I have a great group, and this year was no different. I also judged the hackathon. I should clarify, I didn't judge my son's project. I did the afternoon. But what was interesting is he presented in the morning, and this hackathon he's been thinking about since last year's hackathon. He's been trying to think of his project, think of his problem. This was so important to him. He practiced his presentation with our family multiple times. And that morning I saw him at Andrada just as he was leaving, just as I was coming. And so, of course, my first question is, how did your presentation go? He didn't even want to talk about that, didn't want to even tell me. It was just like, whatever at that point. He wanted to tell me, Mom, this school is amazing. And he was so impressed. This little sixth grader was so impressed at Andrada. And I mean, he hit the nail on the head. It is a great school. It's an amazing, beautiful school. So I just love these programs that not only are teaching these kids so many skills that they can't learn other ways, that they're getting to be on these campuses and see what we have to offer in these higher levels. So just a really great experience for all of these kids. I also did SEPs at Andrada and Empire. Again, just wonderful to see these kids. I mean, when I don't know that I'd presented very many times when I was graduating high school. These kids have presented since they were in middle school. These kids were so professional and just had really great things to say in their SEPs. And again, the groups at both sites that I worked with, super fun people, great to see our staff and the ways that they connect with kids. I think it was interesting at Andrada, the teacher that was in the room with us, he was like, oh, wait till you see this kid. And he was genuinely excited about these kids. And he would tell us about them before they walked in the room. He knew these kids and he knew about their projects and what their plans were. And I just love seeing that connection with our staff. And then last, I failed to mention at the beginning, we have Mr. Buster, who is here. Technically, he is on virtually because he's out of town at a conference for work. And then Miss Tippett is, we are very much supporting her in her role tonight as mom. Her son is playing volleyball. I don't know if we have any updates. Is anybody getting any updates? No, not yet. Okay, we'll have to get some. Anyway, yeah.
They were losing when I walked in.
Oh, darn it.
so-
Okay, maybe we don't want any updates. Not quite. Anyway, she's at Cienega tonight. I know that she would have been here otherwise. So, all right, so that wraps up that section. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below are consent matters and will be considered by one motion at this time. There will be no discussion of consent items. Any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda by request. All items not accepted and approved as part of the consent agenda will be considered individually. Do any board members wish to pull an item? Not seeing any. Mr. Kruth?
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. It's recommended that the Vail School District Governing Board approve all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. King?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is old business. We'll move on to, or we'll start first in item A, the revision to regulation related to policy JEB. And this is an action item.
Thank you, President Pratt, and members of the board. This is an item that was studied at the previous board meeting. It has to do with the entrance age requirements for students. And in particular, this item focuses on that entrance age requirement for students who are entering as kindergartners. The recommendation is not to change the policy. It is only to clarify the policy via the regulation JBER about what exists in policy already, which allows for a may, it actually specifies may is the language, consider the board or the administration may consider an enrollment request for a kindergartner beyond the September 1st deadline, which is what we have had in place for years and years. So currently the policy, the hard deadline for enrollment is a student must be 5 by September 1st of that school year. The policy allows for a May up to January 1 of that school year. We have adhered to that September 1 deadline is a hard deadline for a number of years. And after long consultation with our staff, in particular our elementary principals, and just kind of looking around at the landscape and where things are with parents and parent choice, the feeling that we needed to provide some additional clarity around that September 1st deadline. Is I have been personally over the years involved with conversations with parents who are pleading with us to please tell them what the difference is between their child who was born on September 1st versus a child who was born on August 28th. And that frankly is the hardest decision to make. So this policy revision to the this regulation revision only has to do with providing a grace period for that September 1st deadline of 1 month, extending it to September 30th, on which we will consider a parent's request for an exception allowing entrance into kindergarten. So that's what is reflected. We normally, it's not required to bring forward policy regulation changes, only policy changes, but because of the nature of this particular one, we're bringing it forward. We're bringing this regulation change forward. So with that, I'll go ahead and make the recommendation. The Vail School District Governing Board approve the revision to the regulation related to policy JEB as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Mrs. Anderson
Second.
and Mr. King, comments or questions?
I don't have any. I mean, we discussed it 2 weeks ago, and so I think all my questions were answered then.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bester, are you good?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments or questions? Okay, I know this was studied and discussed at the last meeting, so if there's no other comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item B, 2023-2024 pay increases, also an action item, Mr. Cruz.
Yes, it is. I would jump down a new business in my head on that. Let me get back with you. Here we are.
You're ready to.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I was on item B in new business. Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. This is also an item that was studied at the last meeting. It's actually been studied a number of times via study sessions. And since we've been putting the budget development process on the agenda since late March, early April, the recommendation that we're bringing forth is a 4% pay increase for all staff and for the FY 23-24 school year. We have built in that budget impact within the projected FY 23-24 budget. And have room to make that go, that 4% increase across the board, all employment categories. And if approved tonight, I just want to make the statement that this 4% will come on top of a 5% increase last year and a 3% increase that we paid out via a stipend to all staff who were eligible in that time period. Beginning in January, 2 payments, one right before spring break and then one right after spring break. So the summary of this 4% increase, if voted on tonight, would represent a 12% pay increase for any staff who was with the Vail School District from this point in May of last year to when they would return in July of 2023. So with that, I'll go ahead and make the recommendation that the Vail School District Governing Board approve the FY 2023-2024 pay increases as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr.
Seconded.
King? Mr. Buster. Thank you. Comments or questions? Not seeing any. I know this was also, I mean, this has been studied multiple times. So if there's no other comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Thank you. So now we're on item C, 2023-2024 salary and wage guides, also an action item. Mr. Kruth.
Thank you, President Pratt, and members of the board. Commensurate with a pay increase, we also need to address salary and wage guides and make an adjustment to those as well. We historically don't make an adjustment the same amount so that there's a gap between those that we are that are currently working for us and those that we hire on, but it is important to continue to increase those respective pay guides so that we remain competitive across the region for our respective positions. And so the proposal in front of you for the pay guides for certified staff members would increase to be a 6% salary increase or 6% bump on the pay guide. Classified would be a 95-cent hourly minimum increase to each hourly pay level, a 6% increase to level 21, a 6% increase on levels 22 and 23 to match the certified salary guide for BA and MA staff respectively, and a 6% increase on level 24. For occupational and physical therapists, it would also be a 6% pay increase. For school psychologists, a 6% pay increase. Speech language pathologist, 6% increase, and principals and assistant principal pay guides, also a 6% increase. Again, this fits within the construct of our budget development for FY 23-24. And with that, I'll make the recommendation that the Vail School District Governing Board approve the 23-24 salary and wage guides as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Kruth. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Mrs.
Seconded.
Anderson? Seconded by Mr. Buster. Comments or questions? Again, this has been studied for multiple meetings. I just want to make the comment that I'm just grateful that we can spend the time talking about this and for the work that we can do in this area. If there's no other comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to the last item in old business, which is district enrollment concierge job description, also an action item.
Thank you, President Pratt, and members of the board. Another item that was studied at our last meeting. This item is reflective of our desire to serve parents and provide choices to parents. We created a position a number of years ago to help with our high school choice process, to help families identify what is the best high school for them and make that choice, and also help us with the 8th grade choice process as those 8th grade students explore what high school they might want to go to in the future. One, we have more high schools that we have added with Micah Mountain High School. Two, we are really expanding the job duties of this position to include support for K-8 schools and K-8 open enrollment placements, both for students and families who live within the Vail School District, but also those families who are outside of the Vail School District who are exploring our schools as a choice option for their families. The law regarding open enrollment requires us to make available any space within our schools to out-of-district open enrollment. And frankly, we want to make sure that we have a point of person that can help facilitate that process smoothly for families so that they have a pleasant experience with it and don't have to call multiple schools in order to make that happen. The person who is in this position currently, Amy Castle, is doing an exceptional job. And all one needs to do to understand the complexity of trying to have a deep knowledge of 22 different schools and programs, and then help guide parents there, the respective school, and then work with principals and registrars and front office staff to make sure that that all goes. It's complex. So it's the reason that the job description is being updated. And I think it's a more appropriate title to call it a district enrollment concierge. It's reflective of our desire to serve parents. And then with that title change, also there's some additional job description changes included in the actual job description, along with an increase in level on the pay guide to a level 23. So with that, I'll make the recommendation that the Vail School District Governing Board approve the district enrollment concierge job description as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Kruth. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, you have a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Buster. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. King. Comments or questions? I know this is a very complicated, I mean, it just knowing what goes into some of these discussions, I'm just so grateful that we have somebody like Ms. Castle to welcome these families as they're coming into the district and help them kind of walk through and navigate that process. So I'm super excited about this change. So if there's no other comments or questions, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We'll move on now to new business. Our first item is this, oh, sorry, we already did that one. Our first item now is the district nurse position, also an action item, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. We have Mr. Kearney present this item. Mr. Kearney.
Thank you. Good evening, President Pratt, Mr. Kruth, members of the board. As we think back to as we started the meeting with those who are retiring, before we talk about this new position or new person for this position, just want to publicly thank Chris Conte for her over 2 decades of service in the Vail School District, taking us from once a small school district of 6 schools to now 22 schools that we have. And so big shoes to fill as we look to turn the page with our district nurse. If you recall, earlier this year, we took some time with the board to study a new job description because much has changed within those 2 decades. And we had that job description approved. We then put together a hiring committee comprised of many of our health aides, principals, several principals, as well as our Assistant Director of Human Resources. And through that, the committee has unanimously recommended Christy Wissinger to be our new district nurse. Rather than give you all the details that are in the background, I'm going to share a few highlights. Although Christy would be new to the Vail School District as a staff member, she's certainly not new to our district. She's been here for many, many years as a parent of the district. Her kids have gone through our school starting at an early age. Graduated from our school. She has a daughter who currently is a teacher at Mesquite Elementary. And so if anyone is Vail and understands our culture, Christy is one of those people, certainly. Christy currently serves in a similar role for the Arizona School of Deaf and Blind. She's been doing that since 2011. Not only does Christy bring a great amount of experience with regard to health practices, connection to service providers, but she has an abundance of leadership skills that I think will be really beneficial to our organization moving forward. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn over the recommendation to Mr. Kruth, and then introduce Mrs. Wissinger to you, if indeed the board approves her hire.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. It's recommended that the Vail School District Governing Board approve the district nurse position and placement of Christy Wissinger as a district nurse for the Vail School District effective May 15th, 2023 as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr.
Seconded.
King. Okay, Mr. King and Mr. Buster. Any comments or questions?
Is she here tonight?
I just want to clarify, is she attending?
Yeah, Christy, I'd like to go ahead and introduce you to our board. This is Mrs. Wissinger there in the back.
Great.
And
Thank you.
want to congratulate you and welcome you.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. We're excited to have you. Any comments or questions, Mr. King? Did
I was just welcoming her to the district.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ms. Anderson.
I'm excited about your background too, and just what you'll bring with your experience. So thank you.
Yeah. We want to extend a warm welcome to Vail. We're excited to have you. If there's no other comments or questions, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Congratulations. We'll move on to item C, incentive pay program. including the education enrichment plans. Also an action item, Mr. Kruth.
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. It's been a long-standing program in the Vail School District, well over 30 years, that we provide an opportunity for teachers to submit plans that are wide-ranging in scope, that go above and beyond what is expected of content and their time within the scope of their regular work hours. This has provided a number of opportunities for our students and young people across our schools for a long, long time. It's an unusual process in that most other places simply if you want to do one of these things, you are not compensated for your time with which you do those things, and that's just not our practice here. And so it's been it's a wonderful way to acknowledge those who are stepping out to support students in a different way, and in many ways do some really creative plans and programs for them. And again, very wide ranging. The only requirement is that it benefits students. There were approximately 372 plans were submitted this school year. Those plans are then first go through approval by the principal at that site, then site council approval, and then they go on to district level approval where they're scored against a rubric. There are teachers who are selected as part of that process, and this year's teachers were Shannon Jelly, Elizabeth Schlecht, Jennifer Henke for K-5, Carly Feisberg for 6-8, and Wendy Garrett for high school. And then I volunteer principals to help with that process. And they were Lainey Kitzmiller, Jason Campos, and Sarah Bates for K-5, Rebecca Marsh for 6-8, and Kim Middleton for high school. And then all of you on the governing board graciously donate your time as part of that scoring process. So with that, all the plans have been scored and gone through those rubrics. With that, I'll make the recommendation that the Vail School District Governing Board approve educational enrichment plans and recommended point values as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. King,
Seconded.
Mr. Buster, comments or questions? So just to give a little clarification or just to give context. So many of the clubs that we're seeing, we have crochet clubs, we have after school homework clubs, we have I know in my group we scored a lot of language clubs at Mesquite. For example, my brother teaches in Texas. He's a biology teacher, but he's a native Spanish, or not a native, no, that would be, anyways, he is a fluent Spanish speaker. He could, as a biology teacher, he can choose to write an EP for a Spanish club if that's what he's interested in and excited about. So what I love is that you see teachers that are excited about something that could be within what they're teaching, or it could not be. It's just something that they're excited about. Crochet club. And I love to see that they're bringing those to our campuses. If there's no other comments or questions.
I just also want to clarify to add to that point, some of the clubs are brought forward by students and requested that there be a teacher advisor as a part of that club. And this is also an opportunity for some pay relative to that, which I think is I just want to make that. And there's a wide ranging number of clubs in which that has also occurred. So they're not directing the club as much as being the student advisor for that club.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Yes, could you explain the difference between a director and an advisor from the kind of that legal aspect? Because I know there is some kind of differentiation that needs to be kind of clarified.
So as it's simply just those two words. One, the person involved is directing the activities and setting them up and executing them, whereas an advisor is there to advise, but it's primarily a student-driven activity. Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Anderson.
So question, do you find that that's more on the high school level? Or
Yeah,
does
it's only at the high school level.
only at the high school?
It's only at the high school level, and it has to do, it's very specific in the law regarding student-led clubs. Frankly, I referenced earlier in my superintendent's comments, the Fellowship of Christian Students is a student-run club. They led the baccalaureate service on Sunday evening. That addresses that ability addresses the separation of church and state component by having a teacher serve as a student advisor, as an example. So they can't be there to direct that club. So that's a very clear example of what that looks like versus some of our clubs, like there's language clubs associated. The teacher is directing, teaching, leading that activity. The crochet club, there's gathering materials, there's laying out, they're leading that activity. So that's a difference in what that process looks like.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question?
Do we know if Bolts for Justice is a student led or?
I believe that's the case.
Yeah, student led.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question?
Well, I mean, I know we can't interact, but like on here, I can see how it looked like those two were connected. They're not. Iron Cat is separate and the
Yes,
social justice.
that is a typo, I think, on the form. Iron Cats is completely separate.
Yeah,
It has
I
nothing
think
to
it
do
just
with
the
that.
way it reads, but that goes into just that separation.
Yep.
That's correct. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Kruth, I'd love for you to just kind of go over the funding aspect of it. So kind of what that looks like and how teachers are paid through this.
Yeah, so the rubric, so teachers submit the plan, it's like a grant application in many ways. And it's scored against on a rubric and goes through that process, which I mentioned earlier. There's a teacher representative, a principal, and a board member representative. They score each of those plans. They read them, and then they score them. And then based on that rubric, they're given a point value, and the points are awarded a cash value or what we call a VAIL voucher value, which allows them to earn additional money, but they can only use it towards purchasing coursework or professional development or classroom supplies that would remain a part of the school district. So most of the people who take the VAIL voucher are doing that to better their education, to earn master's degrees, other college coursework associated with their profession. Those dollar amounts are also accounted for as part through our Prop 301 funds, which are directed towards teachers, which is in Arizona is a sales tax revenue that goes towards education, and a portion of that we have to put towards teacher compensation, and we put part of the 301 funding into the base pay for teachers, but rather than putting it all into base pay for teachers and making that equal for everybody, we're saying to those who do additional things, whether you are a student, whether you're a teacher advisor for a club, or whether you're running the club, we want to, your time matters, and we want to compensate you for your time. This is a small way of doing that. Frankly, one of the other pieces that we've been able to bump up this year is the point value. It's $200 per point. And even when you average that out, it's doesn't reach the level of their hourly rate of pay to be able to do this, but it is a way to acknowledge to those teachers who are doing more than is required to create either create programs for kids or allow platforms for kids who are wanting to seek those platforms. And on that regard, I understand the the breadth of what that allows us to do, but you simply can't have one without the other. As far as if students come forward and they want to do a club and they have a student advisor that they can find a student advisor to do that club, they have the ability to create that club. That's why we have such a broad range of clubs that are available. But again, that's only at the high school level. It can only be done at the high school level, and that's both based on state law and in board policy as far as the student advisor
Thank you. Mr. King?
Mr. Kruth, can you also clarify, is there like Supreme Court precedent that establishes what we kind of have to allow as a governing board for clubs that are student-led?
You're taxing my education law knowledge, Mr. King, on the spot. I don't know if it's tied to a Supreme Court case. I do know that it's codified in both federal and state law. What the ability for student clubs to be able to move forward. And frankly, a lot of that law is based on the separation of church and state, and what can happen. And that separation allows for our students to also request. In fact, on this packet, there's one that's a Christian club. If that law were not in place, and it was associated directly with the functioning of the school, that would violate the church and state clause. So that separation by a student-led club allows that separation to happen. So, but if you allow clubs at that level to happen, then you have to allow all clubs to happen where there is a student request to do that club.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so if there's no other comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We'll move on to item D, relationship data dig. This is an inform item, Mr. Kruth.
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board, Mrs. Penn, Mrs. Dow.
Good evening, President Pratt, Mr. Caruth, and members of the board. Mrs. Penn and I are here this evening to share an overview of our very first annual relationship data dig. It was held on March 21st, and in attendance were principals and assistant principals from each site, along with our 3 superintendents and many of our directors. And it was facilitated by Mrs. Penn and I. Our first objective in the meeting was really just to celebrate the incredible culture that already exists at all of our sites. There's really such strong intention around relationships and connections on all of our campuses. As principals entered, there were letters for each of them from parents, students, and staff sharing the incredible ways that they feel connected and valued. And I know that some of you were able to write some of those letters to share with our principals. We knew that going over our protective schools assessment, which is our staff survey, and our student survey data would feel, sitting along their colleagues for the first time would feel a little vulnerable. So Mrs. Penn and I put a lot of thought into ensuring that the focus on relationships was felt the second that they walked into the room, and that our principals felt supported and taken care of throughout the day. Our other objectives were looking in detail around their site reports around the student and the staff surveys. There was a lot of collaboration that happened that day in sharing ideas, which was just so amazing to see. And then they were able to develop strategies for growth and action plans based on those collaborative conversations. I also just want to share a little bit about our why for the relationship data dig. And this visual probably looks very familiar from our all staff that Mr. Kruth shared. And it just aligns so much of Mr. Kruth's message that Vail is a place where relationships are of equal importance in our district to academics. We have solid systems around data, solid system data in place around academics. And now we're starting to do the work around building those systems around relationships and our culture. The PSA, which is the staff survey scores, can feel very personal to our leadership team. So we really took the time to remind our team of the roots of the PSA. And the PSA, which is our staff survey, actually came to us via Dr. Bosworth. who is the University of Arizona professor, through the Safe Schools Grant back in 2005. And those origins are really rooted in a place of building safe schools, grounded in protective factors, and fostering resilience both in our staff and our students. And we'll get into the details of those protective factors in just a few minutes. And these survey scores really give us a glimpse into where our staff and students need extra support and what we as leaders can do to strengthen their resiliency. So in looking in a little more detail for our protective schools assessment, these are the protective factors that are being assessed at every site. And you'll see some that are highlighted in yellow. These are all weighted based on their influence on our culture and climate. And those top four are the strongest influencers: leadership, culture, professional development, academic programs. So a lot of our action plans and SMART goals are focused on those top four. When we look at our student survey, these are the protective factors that we were measuring there. And you'll see a lot of alignment between the elementary protective factors in the middle and high school around school connectedness, school safety, and then those really important peer and adult relationships of having that a trusted adult on campus. And turn over to Mrs. Penn, who will walk you through a little bit of the process and the outcomes of the data dig.
So one of the things that was just really cool in this process is we've been doing academic data digs for a really, really long time. And so we're really familiar with that process of like pulling apart the graphs and the information and identifying those places that we can celebrate and those places where we can apply some attention and make some really strong adjustments. We've been doing that for a really long